but you do it because you really enjoy working with great clients and helping those clients to achieve their goals. And at the end of the day, I can remember doing a package design for a client. I actually made her cry when I presented that.
Hopefully in a good way.
Yeah.
She's not like, this is terrible.
She didn't cry when she saw the bill. She cried when because she really, because her dream, this thing that she invented was really coming to life. So when you look at the package design, it's like, wow, that's great.
Welcome to Little Fish, the podcast where we honor, celebrate, and learn from small business owners and nonprofit leaders like you. I'm Joel, and today on the show, I've got Steve Smith from Consonant Custom Media. I've been working with Steve for quite some time, and what I like about having Steve on the show is that we're in similar industries. So it's kind of interesting to talk about our industry a little bit, but he's got more experience than I do. So here we go. Welcome, Steve.
Thanks.
Thanks
Good to
for being
Joel.
here. Yeah. Well, I like to kind of dive right in with talking about Consonant Custom Media. Let's start there. Let's talk about, I know you refer to it as CCM, right, a lot of times. So what is Consonant Custom Media, and kind of what's your role there?
Well, we're a content marketing company. I call it strategic storytelling. The word consonant means, it's actually a musical term. It means in harmony. And so we create content that's in harmony with our clients' brand values, and it's completely strategic. This content includes anything from blog posts and social media posts up to long-form, immersive storytelling. And that could be a print format, it could be a digital format. Most of our clients are actually nonprofits, and most of our clients are in healthcare.
Okay. So you do, I know a lot of times you put out really beautiful publications for hospitals, for nonprofits, that kind of thing. I know you do digital as well, but yeah, it's good stuff. Okay.
Yeah. One of our clients is the country's largest independent oncology/hematology practice. We've also worked with a couple of big health systems like the USF Health System, and their the Bird Alzheimer's Institute, actually up in Tampa, was one of our first clients when we started in 2010.
Okay, great. So this isn't your first agency or your first marketing. You've been doing this for quite some time. Right?
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that, kind of your background before Consonant Custom Media and your experience in this industry and marketing in general.
Well, after I had about a 20-minute career in broadcasting, I got into marketing communications kind of with a job when I, up north in the New York, New Jersey market, got a job with an ad agency as an account executive. And so I've been doing marketing communications for about 30 years now.
Nice.
And, back then it was all about account management, project management. But over the years, I've gravitated steadily towards the creative side. And that's what really kind of keeps my motor running. So relocated to Florida, took a job with one of the leading agencies in the Sarasota area, again on the account management side. Okay. And then after a few other moves, I started an advertising agency, a full-service marketing firm called Stephen A. Smith and Associates, and that was back in 1997. So I'm certainly familiar with how that advertising and PR agency business works.
Yeah.
But I started Consonant Custom Media because I was looking for a business model that was more sustainable. I was kind of getting tired of that roller coaster ride of the agency business. So I started to look into, it used to be called custom publishing. That you don't really hear that term a lot anymore because it's kind of outmoded, but essentially that's what it is, And so I thought, okay, let me look into this and let me see who the players are, what the costs are, and so on. And the more I looked into it, the more I said, hey, we could really do this. And not only could we do it really well because we have the talent available, but we could provide an excellent value to the clients. So that became a real kind of a good news situation. So when we were kind of facing the headwinds of the Great Recession back in 2009, CCM actually was my plan B. This sounds a little crazy at this point, but my plan A was that an investor and I were going to buy another local ad agency operation. We were going to merge the two agencies.
Okay.
But what happened was, unfortunately, the other agency had a lot of receivables tied up in the housing industry, where we didn't really have anything in the housing industry. We were primarily healthcare. And at some point, we got together, and we said, okay, this just ain't going to work. So, so actually, I take great pleasure in telling people how CCM was actually my plan B, and plan B seems to have worked out pretty well.
Yeah, I know, as a lot of times does, I think.
Yeah.
So when you were talking about the roller coaster ride a little bit of having an agency, advertising agency in the late 90s, right? What was that roller coaster ride? What for those who don't really know the business model of an agency typically, what does that look like?
Well, you have some client relationships that are kind of short-term and they're project related. We didn't do a lot of media buying, so not to get in the weeds too much about the agency business. But if you're doing a lot of media buying, you have a small profitability, but you have kind of a sustained consistency over time,
like a reoccurring income. That
like for example, there are agencies that work with car dealers, and they spend an enormous amount of money in media.
Right.
So even if the only thing you're making is a 15% or even less than that media commission, then you're doing pretty well. But that was really not our business model. And as a matter of fact, I think on the project work we excelled because I and some of the other folks who I had on board at the time were very, very good project managers, and we always tried to keep the overhead low, so we delivered a pretty good value.
Yeah.
But the problem is, the work and the client budgets go through cycles. So you're up at the top of the cycle. It's great. Okay, we're this quarter we're doing these great projects. And then all of a sudden, you're on the downside, and people are pulling back. So when we got to the backside of that big housing boom back in, from let's say 2006, 2008, that time period, we really saw clients saying, "Yeah, we love you guys. It's not like we're leaving. We still want to work with you, but we ain't spending any money."
Yeah, we don't have any money to spend. Yeah, exactly.
So when clients stop spending money, you have to kind of think, let's get creative here.
Right.
What else can we do, to kind of make the, keep the lights on, that type of thing.
And at that time, how big was your team? So you had some employees at that time.
Yeah, I think we had 5 full-time employees.
Okay.
I had the art department going. I had a full-time media director. I had a business development / project coordinator person. And so it was kind of like staffed. It really kind of looked like the typical small agency.
Right. What are some challenges you run into either now or used to as leading a team?
I would say if we take a look at the two big challenges, the biggest challenges overall really is differentiating ourselves from other people who are in the space. Because if content marketing, everybody's doing content marketing now.
Yeah.
So, and the thing that I'm very proud to say is that the work speaks for itself. So,
you guys have great work, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, because of the fact that we have talent, we have experience on the team, it's very strategic. If we can get people looking at our work, they go, okay. The biggest problem is they say, "Oh, we can't afford you."
Right.
To which I say, "Oh, yeah, you can.
Yeah.
We can make that work,
Right.
So that, I would say, we always have to look for new ways to demonstrate our effectiveness and get the work out in front of new prospects, so we can open up those new relationships.
Right.
Second biggest challenge is the same thing any other business has. I don't care what business you're in, and that is finding the right talent. So when I started CCM, one of the reasons why we got off to such a great start and we had really strong early growth was the talent. One of my partners, our consulting editor, John Wark, is a former investigative reporter and a Pulitzer Prize finalist.
Wow.
We had Don Adamak on the team as our art director, and Don, he was our madman. Was a guy from New York way back. And Don, when we talk about laying out magazines, for the print format, he was creative director at Ladies' Home Journal for 8 years.
Okay.
And that was like the biggest magazine in all of magazines. And so the guy was just a brilliant art director when it came to putting those things together. And the writers, like our friend David Chesnick, who is a brilliant storyteller. Yeah. And David was not only is a great writer, but he was one of the people who really kind of helped me get the thing off the ground in the beginning.
Yeah.
So the other thing that was working in our favor was you had this tremendous downsizing in the newspaper business because the newspapers were just letting people go. And so you had people, like Mark Zalotic, for example, who was with the Sarasota Herald Tribune all throughout the time when they were a New York Times newspaper. People like Mark became available. And these guys are, I call them recovering journalists. And they really know how to get a story and to pull it together. And with minimal effort on my part, I just have to say, okay, here's the assignment, and they go after it.
Yeah.
And afterwards, I fuss with headlines and things, but they're, great people.
It so does come back to the relationships and the people. When you're talking about employees, when you're talking about, it doesn't matter, partners, clients, a lot of times we focus on, well, how much are we paying them? What are the benefits we're giving them? All that, which is important.
Right.
But it really does seem to come back to, do we like working together? Are we having a good time also while we work really hard on this particular project? We created Little Fish as a place where small businesses can support one another and build on one another's strengths. And one of the ways that they can do that, and we want to start helping with that, is by releasing valuable content, resources, and tools. And so we're going to do just that over the next few months and into next year. So I want to invite you to join our email list. If you go to thelittlefishpodcast.com and sign up and answer a few questions, first of all, you'll immediately get 2 free resources that will help you with your business and grow your business, specifically about your website. And then also you'll get notified when new content comes out and releases. So we'd love for you to join us. Go to thelittlefishpodcast.com and sign up today.
Oh yeah, that's important. It's important to pay people well, of course, but it's also important to make it fun and make it real.
Yeah,
because it is a people business. You're right. It's all about relationships.
Yeah.
And while we're sharing real stories about real people, we're doing a good job of nurturing those relationships too.
Yeah.
So the sustainability is there, and that kind of goes back to why the business model for me works so much better than the ad agency business, because in that sustainability, we like to get into relationships with clients where there's there is a contract and those contract terms are flexible. But I think when a client sees value and when a client sees results, like for example, for Detoli Cancer Foundation, okay, here's another one in the way of a case history. They were publishing a kind of a little 2-page newsletter.
Okay.
And I hate to use the word newsletter, but that's what it was.
Yeah.
It was really kind of inadequate for the amazing work that they do and for the goals that they have.
Yeah.
It was really kind of inadequate. So they allowed us to, we showed them the work we were doing for other clients. And over time, when they were ready, they said, okay, we're ready. So we kept the title. It's called Journey.
Yeah.
And we kept the title, but in every other way, we completely elevated it. And so we made it into a print and digital publication that really looks like a real magazine. And it's such it's a more, when you put your content, you have better content in the first place.
Yeah.
And then you take that content and you put it into a higher quality presentation.
Yeah.
Well, what happened was their fundraising more than doubled.
Wow.
So, talk about results there, there it is.
Yeah. And they have people have that tangible, beautiful publication they're able to flip through, and that makes a big difference.
Yeah, they can flip through it as a print format, or they can go online and, there it is.
But it's important too. I mean, the print, a lot of people say, well, print media is, done or it's gone, but it's not, because everybody's going digital and has been for some time, websites and all that's good and necessary. But there is just something about holding something in your hand.
Well, when you take the path less traveled, right, you're going to stand out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. All right, back to kind of a personal side.
Mm-hmm.
If you had to talk to yourself 10 years ago, if you had to give yourself some sort of advice, what would you tell yourself? My favorite question.
I would say, is it too late to go to law school? I don't know. No, it's really, that's a good one, because there was a lot of soul searching being done during the Great Recession.
Mm-hmm.
And, I love this business. As I said, I've gravitated over the years from being strictly on the account management side to doing a lot of creative, a lot of writing, a lot of creative direction,
right.
And, you get to a point where you're not doing it because there's a wall full of awards, oh, gee, we got a gold Addy or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, plenty of those. But you do it because you really enjoy working with great clients and helping those clients to achieve their goals.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, I can remember doing a package design for a client. I actually made her cry when I presented that. It
hopefully in a good way.
Yeah.
She's not like, this is terrible.
She didn't cry when she saw the bill. She cried when because she really, because her dream, this thing that she invented was really coming to life. So when you look at the package design, it's like, wow, that's great. But anyway, that I would say this, what I'm doing now is great because it allows me to do the best work I've ever done in a way that really kind of brings out the best. It brings out the best in us, and it brings out the best in the clients too. And it doesn't get old, because every time you're working with either a new client, or it's the same client you've been working with for 5 or 6 years, but you're writing about new things.
Yeah.
And you're bringing in new contributors.
Right. So everything's fresh. I can relate to that. I mean, and we deal with the same thing. If I had to work for one agency or one company doing design or doing creative, it just would get old, because every project has such a unique spin to it. And, it brings up something that what you kind of hit on, where what you like, where you're at in your career right now, is what you like is being involved in the project.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's a big trend right now, I think, among business owners and business leaders and nonprofit leaders, to grow your organization to the point where, you're just worrying about growing the organization. You no longer, if you read, I don't know if you've ever read the E-Myth before, but there's a big, Michael Gerber says, don't be the technician anymore. Don't be the person doing the project. Become the person that leads the people doing the project work.
Yeah.
But, and I understand that. I understand why people go that direction. And I do a little bit of that myself. But there's just something about still being involved in the creative work, or still being involved in the technician or the talent role, that makes it meaningful beyond just, hey, we're scaling a business, we're growing a business, we're making more money. You know what I mean? And you touch on it with that.
I have to say that I'm just very particular about, I like to pay attention to detail.
Mm-hmm.
And as a project manager, I enjoy it.
Right.
But it's also, I want to make sure everything is done correctly. And it's that attention to detail, I think, that, clients, when we begin working with a new client, sometimes they're actually, I could tell they're a little bit surprised that, I'm the guy who's calling them and following up. And, we have a copy editor / proofreader, but I do a fair amount of proofreading, and I fuss with things and how can we take this thing and make it better? Or let's make sure we're really buttoned down about all those follow-up. It's like, I'm great with follow-up. Everything. If you got to follow up, you never want to leave a client hanging and wondering, well, did they get the delivery instructions,
right,
or did they? When is that thing gonna be posted, or whatever it is? And I have to admit that we probably would have grown faster if I let go a little bit more, but but that's just me. It wouldn't
but
be
why?
me.
But why? That's right. And
Yeah.
I think sometimes there's so much, especially in the business world and the personal productivity world and that space, there's a lot of talk about scaling and growing. And one of the things that I love about the people we've been talking to on the podcast is some of them have those goals, but some of them are like, look, I do meaningful, good work here.
Mm-hmm.
I want to continue to do that meaningful, good work, and I don't have to take over the world. Because
Right.
there's a lot of push, especially business books, right? You read business books and then it's all about like scale and grow and take over the world and become a multi-million, billion-dollar industry. And,
Right.
and all that's good. I'm not knocking that, but
Yeah.
I love to celebrate those of us who are like somewhere in the middle of that, or even just like, I love the work that I do. I want to be in that every day.
Oh, yeah.
And I come home at the end of the day and I have meaning and connection to the work that I'm doing.
Yeah,
It's good stuff.
Particularly working with the nonprofits is very rewarding because we're not
Yeah.
fundraisers, but we help them to increase their fundraising, and we help them to help people understand their missions.
Right.
Because one of the sort of common afflictions out there in the nonprofit world is everybody says, yeah, go to our website, and the first thing you see is the donate now
Yeah.
button.
Yeah.
Okay, well, if you really want to increase fundraising or increase your level of volunteer recruitment or any of those other goals and performance indicators in the nonprofit world, you have to allow people you have to engage better with your communities. Patrons, volunteers, donors, contributors, whatever they may be.
Yeah.
So it's all about engagement. So if you increase that engagement, you're increasing understanding. If you increase understanding, then some amazing things are going to happen.
Right.
You might be able to increase your donors, the amount that existing donors are contributing. You may be able to reach out and commonly, new donors, and they may be very substantial donors because the competition in some of these markets is just really intense among the nonprofits. I mean, it's just, it can be really kind of crazy.
And like you said, I think with the going right to the donate, it's like people are looking for that quick win, but you're kind of coming in and saying, look, let's take the long road here, the one that works and is sustainable and actually makes long-term buy-in, I would say too, right?
Yeah, well,
with your donors and volunteers.
And here's where storytelling comes in, because let's say, for example, it's an end-of-year appeal for a nonprofit. There is great temptation on the part of the whether it's the development director or the director of communications to start off a year-end appeal by saying, there's a tremendous problem out there, and globally, thousands and hundreds of people are affected by this, and this is what we do, and we do this, and we do that, and we do. And so what we try to do is we try to go in and say, look, it's been proven, and allow us to help you do this, that if you focus on your community, it's not about you, it's about your community, your communities, okay? So instead of starting off by saying, for over 40 years, our nonprofit has been, whatever the blah, blah, blah is after that.
Right.
And by the end of that first sentence, they're already saying, oh, brother, give me a break. I've seen 100 of these in the mailbox, right? What you do is you demonstrate your impact, and you start off with a story about, let's say it's a 9-year-old girl and her family. And if it were not for the work of your nonprofit, they would have been really in trouble. And you describe how you helped them. And that's a very highly focused, that's really where the rubber meets the road. And that's the thing that tugs on the heartstrings. And it's not just an emotional appeal, but it is. You're making an emotional connection, and you're helping them to understand your mission better. And then only after you've done that, you make the ask and you say, okay, here's an example of the impact that your donation can have.
Right.
And so then if you back that up, let's say that's a year-end appeal, and then you back that up with a campaign, a storytelling campaign that's very strategic and that really speaks to the strengths of your mission and your work, then there is no way that can't have a tremendous impact on your fundraising. And so as you head then into the new year, after you've made the end of year, it's just, and it could be in terms of format, it could be letters in the mail, it could be an email campaign, a series of email campaigns.
Right.
It could be a series of blog posts and lots of sharing on social media. But the main thing is to share the stories.
Tell the story. Yeah. You're speaking my language there.
Yep.
Yeah, that's good. Well, in light of some of the things we talked about, what is, if you had to say what success looks like for you moving forward as CCM, how would you define that? What would that look like for you over the next 5 years, let's say?
Well, for me, it's pretty simple, and that's creating more success for our clients.
That's good.
Because that's really what it's all about.
Yeah.
We create the content that helps them get to their goals, right? So whether it's perception or it's fundraising, or if it's strategic development of service lines, if we're helping our clients get to their goals, then those relationships are going to flourish, and that's going to lead to new relationships, and it's going to lead to just an increase in the size of an existing relationship. So, that's pretty simple. I mean, I've always been client focused, and maybe it goes back to, my beginnings on the account management side.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just, it's great to see clients saying, hey, this is great, this is working, let's get going on the next story or the next series of stories. Or, if it's a nonprofit, having the nonprofit say, hey, yeah, our fundraising is up by this much since we started doing this. So, this is pretty good. Let's keep doing it.
Yeah. It reminds me of I think it's a pretty well-known Zig Ziglar quote. I'm going to paraphrase it here, but the idea that if you help enough people have success in their own life, you'll have success in yours. You'll have everything you need.
Yeah.
And that's the idea, right? Is that help other people succeed, pour into them, and you're going to have your things are going to be taken care of.
Yeah,
like that.
That's exactly right. I mean, that's what we say when we go out and talk to people. We always say, hey, it's not about us, it's about you.
Yeah.
And so it's all client focused. It's
Right.
all about their goals.
Yeah. Well, if someone was interested in working with CCM, they've heard you talk about storytelling. Maybe they run a nonprofit, they're involved in a nonprofit, or not just nonprofits, right? What would you recommend? How do they get in touch with you? What's the process? How does that look?
I say, call me. We'll have lunch.
Okay. So pretty informal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. They can
Makes
call
sense.
me, or they can get in touch, through the website, send me an email, and we'll talk. And that's where it all begins, is having that initial conversation.
Yeah.
As I said, there's no off-the-shelf product. Everything is completely custom made.
Yeah.
So let's start with absolutely a clean sheet of paper and have a discussion about what's working for you, what's not working for you.
Yeah.
And that's the strategic part that really, kind of keeps me going, and hopefully keeps more people coming to us, to have that conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Steve, it's been great having you. I love what you do. I love your heart. I love how you're helping other people, and you're committed to seeing them succeed. So thanks for being on the show.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Joel.
it.
Yeah.
Hey guys, I'm Ryan. I'm the guy behind the scenes, and thank you so much for watching the podcast. If you want to watch more videos like this, make sure you click the like and subscribe button. And I also want to give a shout out to 81A Studios for letting us use the facility. If you want to learn a little bit more about them, make sure you go to 81astudios.com. Thanks.